Hello, everyone. Welcome to ELI, the only podcast in India where we bring a new founder on every episode to talk about their journey and their story of building a startup. And today we have with us Sriram, who is the co-founder of DaveAI, which is an AI-driven sales augmentation platform. Hi, Sriram. Welcome to ELI.
Thanks, Priya, for having me, and it's a pleasure to be on the platform. Great work in whatever you're doing, bringing founders to the forefront. So glad to be here.
Thank you, Sriram. And it's also our pleasure to have you on our platform. To start with, would love to understand about your background, about your journey prior to entrepreneurship. Where did you work? Where did
Right.
you study? How was your childhood? And how did you land up in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I was born in a in a tea estate in Tamil Nadu. My dad used to work in a tea estate, so sort of grown up in a community living experience, mostly in hill stations. So got the opportunity to study in good convent schools, I would say. Yeah.
Hmm.
However, that also ensured that my exposure was limited to what was happening within that small town.
Hmm.
I went on to do my engineering from Anana University Affiliated College. Did my mechanical engineering for 4 years. In fact, I met my co-founder in DaveAI, Ashok. We did engineering together.
Hmm.
Then spent a year in 3D design for then Satyam,
Right.
which was one of the biggest IT firms. Post that, I realized that I had sort of built this interest in business, especially owing to my friends in my engineering. A lot of them came from business families, had a very different perspective. So business is something that really fascinated me.
Hmm.
During that phase in engineering, though we didn't really do anything at that point, but it always remained as a seed in me. I went on to do my MBA from a college called ICFI Business School in Bombay. Was a decent business school. Made some good friends there, but very importantly changed my perspective. That was my first formal education in looking at business. Came to Bangalore to join Wipro.
Hmm.
I joined a small entrepreneurial team within Wipro. I think that was probably the start of sort of grooming this idea of entrepreneurship within me, because we were a team of 8-10 people trying to go and set up a new business vertical for Wipro in India. It
Hmm.
was an established business called Energy and Utilities globally for them, but in India it was a very new team. I was the youngest in the team, and I had the opportunity to go around the country and put in these large government bids.
Hmm.
So my first job pretty much was solutioning. We had these complex 200, 300 crore solution architecture stuff put together by a pretty cool team. But because we were a very small team, I got hands-on experience in tech. Though I was a mechanical engineer, I could sort of look at architecture, make sense of it, parallelly talk to a set of very complex customers in the government
Hmm.
public utility segment. It was a transformative 3 years for me in Wipro. From there, I realized that consulting is really where customers listen to you rather than you having to sell to them. So I spent some time with IDC, which is the Gartner equivalent, but more on the
Right.
data side. So I was still on the sales side, but there you can't really do hardcore sales. It's mostly living with consultants, trying and then taking them to customers and building opportunities around it. It was a very interesting experience again.
Hmm.
Post that, the last 3 years of my corporate life was with HCL. I used to manage large accounts for them, some very large relationships that HCL had in India.
Hmm.
And by then I realized that, I had to sort of during that time, we had the opportunity to do some small experiments to see if entrepreneurship was for us. So me and Ashok, we started a pet store It
Right.
was supposed to be an omni-channel pet store. We did that in Bangalore, ran that for 2.5, 3 years. I was, of course, full-time in HCL, so I used to spend my weekends there.
Mm.
Um, and during that time, it really I got the understanding that like any corporate employee who wants to do business starts with a part-time thing, right? Like that's what
Mm.
you do. Try and do something on weekends, late evenings, and so on and so forth.
Right.
But I realized that if I have to do something meaningful, I have to be full-time in it. And At that point, I got an opportunity to work with a startup in the Valley to set up their business in India.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of helped me transition out of corporate into the startup world, understand how startups work, spend a year with them, and then decided to quit and start something of my own. And That's when we started. Our first venture was food tech. That's where we met Anand, who's a third co-founder.
Mm.
Running Pet House, me and Ashok decided that he was a domain expert in retail. I knew some amount of sales, consulting, and so on and so forth, but I was more a generalist that way.
Mm-hmm.
And we really needed a strong tech person to be with us and build this. That was what we were lacking in our first venture. That's how we met Anand, and he was with Samsung. Sort of convinced him to. He was, of course, at the verge of starting to take a break. Sort
Mm-hmm.
of convinced him to join us as a team. Join us in the sense that join our adventure. We built this out for 3 to 4 months. Got to a certain set of customers, and but through that time was really the first time we were three of us full time working on an idea. We realized that as ideas evolve, maybe there is something bigger for us to look at in the B2B space.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how SocioGraph was born. DaveAI is more a new sort of baptized into DaveAI sometime late 2019, but
Mm.
we started as SocioGraph. So that's how the journey started. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about the first product, SocioGraph. What was it about?
So we were, personalization was a key part that we were trying to solve for in the previous venture.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized that at that point of time, something interesting was happening in India. A lot of MNCs were coming in and setting shops. So if you looked at, and the retail landscape was evolving digitally. So, Pepperfry, Urban Ladder, Amazon, Amazon on the e-commerce side really picking up scale, and its competitors, Indian-born competitors. Then there were the news of IKEAs of the world coming in,
Mm.
Decathlon, right? So really, in-store experiences were changing, and that was transforming predominantly large corpus of Indian mom and pop shops,
Mm.
right? When I say mom and pop, we were looking at lifestyle retail. So we were looking at businesses that were doing 10 to 100 crores of business who had the appetite for digital, but they were actually getting disrupted by, on one side, the Amazons of the world, and the other side, the MNCs coming in and setting
Right.
shops, right? So they really wanted to bring in digital within their stores to improve customer experience, and
Mm.
also systems that would enable them to communicate with customers better. So it was a sales companion app. We were providing an application to the salesperson. These were all complex purchases. Think about you buying something for your house. Home Center, for example, was one of the customers. So, and most of these home furnishing stores, tiles and sanitary ware stores, marble outlets, etc., where they had tons of products, a lot of customers walking in, 10 to 12 salespeople, one or two salespeople were product specialists, the remaining were just logistics guys. So there was a big gap in customer experience. And we were trying to solve that by enabling the salesperson on the ground, plus creating self-service touchpoints digitally. So that was a product, had two channels, the self-service kiosks or television screens transformed into digital kiosks, and
Mm.
an app that a salesperson could use. And you can think about it as a CRM plus plus.
Okay.
It sat on top of CRMs if they used one. If they did not use one, this would be their primary CRM, but predominantly built for in-store, not a replica of Salesforce or one of those CRMs, but typically built for an in-store use case, right? So
Mm.
Phygital was what we were tapping. We scaled it up to 60, 70 stores
Mm-hmm.
before we then made a pivot. Yeah.
Why did you pivot? Did it not work?
See, we had product market fit, from a perspective that yes, the problem existed and we had a product that solved for the problem. But the economics did not work, right? Which meant that we had to invest really heavily in taking the product to market. But we were trying to still solve in India, and for a business that does 10 to 100 crores,
Mm-hmm.
they were no different from a very large enterprise customer, right? This was the owner who was involved in digital decisions. Every store had a very different tech landscape. So they already had something and you had to integrate with it, or to create a new system meant you had to solve for things that they did not have, or we did not have as a product,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they would only buy if that one more feature existed, and that one more feature would be different for every single retailer. So we really, while we were very deep in some of these retail outlets, like I said, 60, 70 stores in 2 years, was a decent number. It was not bad,
Mm-hmm.
but it was not a great number, right? Because each store would pay us probably anywhere between 6,000 to 12,000 or 35,000 bucks was maximum per store per month, right? From there to really, so we were doing like $50,000 in revenue, and the scale we needed were thousands of stores.
Mm-hmm.
We really couldn't sort of imagine how we would scale to 1,000 stores. The only way to look at it was take this and go to the US. And then we spoke to Retail Next was our closest competitor in the US. And I had an opportunity to speak, with the team members there, and we realized that, they're also facing the same problem, though they're at a very developed market there. But interestingly, during this time, we also had an opportunity to work with some large enterprises.
Mm-hmm.
And we really felt the product market fit was better there also because of the economics, right?
Right.
They were ready to pay, they had the data, they had a level of maturity to look at something like AI. It was still an AI product, right? The
Mm-hmm.
core personalization engine, which we now have a patent for, was started to be built from 2016. So it was the first piece of tech we built. We want a patent for it now. Of course, there are new layers added to it, but the core online learning genetic algorithm still remains the same. It started from there. So so the pivot was majorly because of the customer persona that we were selling to, both in terms of the organizational persona as well as the buyer persona.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And in 2019, you pivoted to DaveAI. Tell us about the
Yeah.
premise behind it. Like, what research did you do? Why? How did you come up with this idea that yeah, this is something that might work? Because AI was not uh, yet
Yeah.
there. Nobody knew about
Yeah.
the AI thing until
Yeah.
2022. So, how
Yeah.
did this idea come to you?
In fact, 2017, 18, at least in the startup circle, there was a big AI hype,
Oh, oh.
and then sort of fintech took over. Of course, there was COVID, and then there was a fintech wave.
Mm,
But yeah, there were a very small set of AI startups. A lot of them pivoted into whatever at that point. But yeah, the awareness was limited. But we still use Google Maps and Siri and Alexa, and all of that was still
yeah.
very much part of our lives then. But interestingly, what we were noticing in a lot of these stores is one behavior, because we had the opportunity, because we were a founding team. Most of my time was spent inside some of these retail outlets through the day,
Mm-hmm.
talking to customers and then the eventual end customers to figure out what gaps they are seeing. That was the insight that we were trying to build into the product. And a lot of them were doing a lot of online research before walking into the store.
Mm,
And what we realized is a lot of them know a lot about the product already, right? And let's assume a product had 10 features. They would know about 8 of them, and they would have like these two features that they want to either experience, so they were very impatient while talking to the salesperson, right? And in a
mm-hmm.
lot of cases, the customer knew better,
Right.
right? And or when they come, they really wanted a salesperson to really consult them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was really, yes, at the end point, there was a sales thing that could happen in terms of price and all of that, depending on the product that you're buying. But otherwise, we felt that, there was a big shift happening from you saying, all right, I want to buy something.
Mm,
Let's just go to a set of stores and buy, to people really searching online, knowing about the product, and then saying, which are the stores I want to go to, right?
mm-hmm,
So they were really spending time before they walked into a store. So at that time, they wanted like the best experience, right? Because a lot of that was not solved for online. So we felt that, if we don't look at online and only look at in-store, we're actually missing a large part of the discovery experience, right?
right.
And it's very difficult for me to sort of match that experience only in store. So it was becoming truly digital. So we realized that we have to talk to customers directly on behalf of these brands, because let's say in a store, 100 people would walk in, but if you put a website up, 1,000 people would hit the website, right? Like
Mm,
I'm just giving a like a regular number, not at scale. So, and you can't have proportionate number of people. So you wanted something that would engage with customers online.
mm-hmm,
And when you walked into the store, there had to be continuity and you had to complete the purchase.
yeah.
So we felt that yes, what we built had the capability to talk to customers directly then. Of course, it was still an NLP model, still a transformer-based model, but not, nothing close to what's available today. But yeah, it could do, basic questions, handle fairly complexities.
Mm-hmm,
Bot is still live with a bunch of customers still using that. So we transformed into Dave AI. Dave AI was a persona because if you're talking to somebody, then even for the brand to understand what does Dave do, they
mm-hmm,
could relate it to as some capabilities that, like, in today's world, an agent could perform. So Dave was their sales agent, right, at that point, who would understand who the customer is, personalize the experience for them, talk to them about products, nudge them, and help them make a purchase decision. So my
mm-hmm,
sales pitch hasn't changed really in the last 5 6 years. Of course, the context around which the product is has changed. So
mm-hmm,
that's how we shifted, and we were very clear that it is for complex products. It's not for e-commerce. Where you would come to a store, impulsively buy a bunch of things, but it was for products that you would spend some time researching, understanding, then making a purchase decision. It's a complex discovery process, and that's what we intended to solve.
got it. And speaking about that, can you give examples of which all industries do you find good
Yeah.
use cases to solve?
Yeah, yeah. So because of our genesis with home lifestyle retail in the earlier venture, we had built a lot of depth in that vertical, right? So
Mm,
my models, our systems understood color combinations, for example, right? Which still is used in large part of our product stack. So home was a big segment for us. My first customer, large enterprise customer, was Spar, which is Spar's home lifestyle business, which is a landmark group.
right.
They still continue to be our customer. We signed them up in 2018 or something like that. We still continue to work with them. So home was a big segment. We today have close to 30% of our customer base is home. So we work with laminates brands, home interior brands, bathroom fitting brands, right, etc.
Mhm.
And then we drew parallels. So of course, the 0 to 1 journey, we had to identify verticals that would fit us because we had to then build depth, right? So we had the opportunity to work with Axis Bank through their startup program called Thought Factory.
Mm,
Got an insight into BFSI, and then started working with other banks and NBFCs. And around 2019, we also got the opportunity to be part of the Maruti Suzuki startup program, which I would say was sort of transformational for us at that
mhm,
point, because the scale that a market leader brings in, right? So, for example, if you take banking, somebody like HDFC or SBI, or if you look at auto, then Maruti Suzuki,
right.
or an LIC or a Bharat Petroleum. If you work with some of these brands, you really, and if the product, you get very deep insights, because you know one in two cars is a Maruti Suzuki, right? At least when we onboarded, probably one and two and a half cars today. So we were really able to go deep into each of these verticals, at least at the sales experience level.
Mhm.
And those are the three verticals we started selling to, until late this year, early this year. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. And what is the exact technology you got patent for? Tell us about the AI stack that you have developed so far.
Yeah. So today, if you look at our AI stack, we have three layers. So we have the um, microbot layer, which is the grid. We call it, the platform is called GRYD today,
Mhm.
while the product is DaveAI. The platform is GRYD, GRYD with a Y. So we have the grid conversation layer, which is typically the bot layer. So we call it microbots. So these are small bots that could be, one could be a sales bot, one could be, like you said, a calling bot, deployed in different channels. One could be a WhatsApp bot, things like that. So there are microbots, uh, either deployed in different channels for different use cases, etc. These bots use agents.
Mhm.
Agents are, typically for action. These
Yeah.
are, you can think about them when coupled with a model, they are reasoning agents. So within the agent, we have a couple of capabilities that are patented. So we have a personalization agent that
Mhm.
has the ability to look at real-time customer data
Mhm.
and your historic customer data, your product data, and then make decisions, typically to say what is the next best action for this user in simplified terms, right?
Mhm.
Internally, the tech is a bit complex. We use an online learning genetic algorithm. It's like how the DNA, genetics happen.
Mhm.
So we try to then look at all these attributes and find a combination that could work for you. So it's of course in some sense comparable to a. It's not probabilistic, but you can think about it as a probabilistic sort of framework where you would try and predict randomly what could work for a user based on the feedback, try and reinforce, learn, and then go back. Right, that's the tech.
Got it.
Then we have a visualization agent where the avatar tech happens. So an avatar could also be like the microbot could add an avatar into it, but there is a visualization layer that could create real-time visualizations or real-time synthesis for speech and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
And then we have these action agents, which could typically be, let's say for automobile, it could be for product comparison. So if I want to come and say, if I work for, let's say, Maruti Suzuki for the sake of it, and I'm looking at buying a Swift, because something that everybody who would listen to a podcast, at least from India, would know the car.
Yeah.
How does it compare with the competitor model? And the agent can, already goes to a model. We'll talk about the model layer, but goes to a model that may have this information, looks at the customer query, compares, decides what information would be relevant to this user, decides on that, and then delivers that through the microbot, yeah, to the customer. So agents like that, we have a set of agents that are built for auto and a couple of other use cases, horizontal agents. Document summarization could be one use case, right? So agents that perform these actions. And at the bottom layer is a model zoo. Obviously, we are not a model creator. When I say model creator, a foundational model creator.
Right.
But we are fine tuning models.
Mhm.
So we, of course, give access to most large language models through our platform.
Mhm.
But also, we have fine tuned models. We have taken small language models and fine tuned it for the verticals that we work on.
Mhm.
Currently, very specifically for mobility.
Okay.
It's currently in closed beta with some of our customers, but we're expecting a launch soon. So these are models that, like I said, vehicle data, for example, right?
Mhm.
So trained on whatever public information is available, so that we're able to sort of go deeper into that domain and have a model that could, solve for some of these use cases. So that's a three-tiered grid that we're talking about, and at each layer we have differentiations, and it can an enterprise can take it, deploy it in any cloud, and integrate it with any application and work with any model of their choice. Need not only be through the grid model zoo. Let's assume they already have an Azure OpenAI subscription. It can
Mhm.
seamlessly connect because it has connectors.
Okay.
The agentic framework is like also has like our version of the MCP, if I want to call it,
Mhm.
and you can actually bring in external agents. So it's not that if you work with Dave AI, if you think that there is another agent that's very interesting, we allow the enterprise to onboard that agent into our ecosystem and work. So this becomes the enterprise's foundational AI layer.
Mm.
So we, in some sense, our vision is to democratize AI. That's a vision statement that we released in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Now with the generative AI era, we are trying to democratize the new, AI framework for enterprises so that they're able to build and scale without tying up to one cloud service provider, one model layer, and do what is relevant for their enterprise, right? And not be worried about the next GPT model launch or what it will create to their strategy. It's predominantly their business. If their business is selling cars, then focus on selling cars, right? So
Got it.
that's what we help them do.
Got it. Yeah, it's really interesting because you are not creating the frictions or barriers to the customers because technology is evolving very fast and you never know
Yeah,
when every month a new model is getting
yeah,
released and customers would be benefited by using the latest model out there.
yeah,
And again, you're also talking about the agents. Or every day, new agents and use cases are coming up. So you are making it accessible
yeah,
for everyone to connect and just
yeah,
plug and play.
yeah.
Having said that, how are you finding the pace of innovation? Because it's really crazy world out there. A lot of
Right.
innovations happening. A lot of people are also losing their job because of that. So uh, innovation is happening at a scary pace.
Right.
How do you keep up?
There are two ways to look at it. One is to look at the scarier side, because as a technology player, we could take both sides, right? Like
Yeah.
we could get disrupted anytime. It could be one view. The other view is to look at it as a fantastic opportunity and a problem to solve for. As entrepreneurs, that's what you look at. So I think it's a great opportunity at which the innovation is, at pace of this innovation is a great opportunity for builders too, because even technology players like us and anybody we talk to, I don't think it's humanly possible to track, really meaningfully track these developments
Correct.
and work on it, right?
Mhm.
So it's a great opportunity to learn and figure out. Also take a step back and see, what are the most meaningful developments and what should really make sense to you. So I think an outward in view would make it very scary, but an inward out view, in terms of what is relevant for me, for my business, is
Mhm.
what we look at as DaveAI, and that's what we consult our customers in as well, right? So, it doesn't matter. There could be a model that is great, but maybe it's not doing anything for you in your business.
Yeah.
And as long as you have a business target and you have today decided on a framework and then you achieve that X delta in your business operations, in your ROI, there could be small pilots that are running. You can run hundreds of them, but so there needs to be a framework for enterprises to do that. But at the end of the day, meaningful projects at scale, I think they'll have to sort of, like, it's like selecting a school for your kids, right?
Mm.
There would always be a better option elsewhere. You have to sort of make peace with what you have, but do sufficient research and ensure that you're doing right and have the right reasons to choose something. Not because everybody is doing it right today. There is this huge wave of Gen AI pilots.
Right.
Even though enterprise leaders we speak to sometimes say that, hey, I know that this can't scale for my enterprise because I'm spending whatever X dollars for each conversation. But at this point, because this is a pilot, I don't have a limitation. So let me go and try it out. Hopefully, in a year, model token cost will come significantly down. The ecosystem will mature, and then we'll figure out the rest, right? And
Mhm.
of course, the model players are also incentivizing enterprises to adopt it. So I think, yeah, I think that happens, but not getting caught in the hype cycle, but also always keeping a business ROI in mind, I think helps. For us, also, it's the same, right? What is meaningful for us, we try and track, and I'm sure there are tens of things that we miss,
Mhm.
but we try and see what's relevant to us, and whatever we take up, we try and then make meaningful progress with that. right? So that's how I look at it. And it's a good problem to solve also for enterprises because they can't keep track of all of this. And let's say with something like a grid model zoo is ideal for them.
Right.
So that they say that, all right, I can work with you because tomorrow if I want to connect to the model, use you only as a gateway,
Mm-hmm.
happy to do that, right? And we also give training and we say that you don't even have to come to DaveAI. You deploy the platform. I can even train your system integrator to go ahead and build on top of it. So it's sort of like a licensed closed source framework, but sort of open source for the enterprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we are currently looking at the business. So that's the innovation layer currently. Yeah.
Got it. And how do you foresee the future? Because maybe someday Gemini would come up with a Dev AI or ChatGPT will.
Yeah.
How do you sort of evolve as a company in future? Do you go
Yeah.
deep into the domain, or do you expand geographically?
Yeah.
What are the plans do you have for next 2 3 year at least? Because 5 year 10 year horizon nobody can predict right now, but I'm just asking for
Yeah.
the near future.
Yeah. So we took a conscious call to go deeper in one domain, which is mobility. So we are now, everything else we're working through partners who bring in domain expertise. So we only provide the platform layer and then leave the partner to add the domain flavors. But mobility is a vertical where we are building deep capabilities in, and we believe that it's a large enough market opportunity. Also, the vertical itself, right? If you take auto as a vertical, mobility, of course, is the bigger space, but let's say one piece of the major piece of it is automobile across the globe.
Mhm.
That's also going through a transformation, right? It's becoming software defined. Electric vehicles are changing the way dealerships operate across the world. A lot of data that you are sharing with the vehicle today, probably after your mobile device, I think the next largest consumer device that you're sharing so much data with. When I say mobile device, your phone, your watch, and all of that.
Mhm.
But beyond that is your vehicle because
Right.
it knows where you're going, you're talking to it, it knows your music preferences and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So I think there is a lot of data as long as you build that connected ecosystem.
Mm.
And there's a great opportunity for automobile providers, allied ecosystem providers to give value to the end consumer.
Mm.
Right? Earlier, you had to drive. Of course, the same problems of finding fuel stations and all of that existed,
Mhm.
but there was no distribution into the vehicle, right? You couldn't really communicate from the vehicle to the end consumer. But that's become democratized today with Android Auto, digital screens, a lot of real estate, digital real estate, developed markets also doing self-drive cars, etc. So lot more time available from the consumer. So that is going through a very different rate of rapid development also, and the ecosystem is shifting. So, like how you say that how workforce would look very different with AI, I think the vehicle experience, ownership experience, all of that, the vehicle itself, and all of that would look very different, right? We're already seeing the new generation of vehicles on the roads look very different, feels very different to drive, and all of that. So, I think we believe that's a great market opportunity for us, and it's very difficult for a Google or for a see, of course, I'm not saying that we will compete with Google if Google does it, but I'm saying it doesn't make sense for Google to do something extremely deep for
Right.
one vertical, solving for enterprises. They would solve for the masses, right? That's their business model.
Right.
So we actually piggyback on some of those developments. So, for example, there are uh, much more valuable and not valuable is the word, capable small models that are being released by some of these large players,
Right.
allowing us to fine tune them better, build more use cases on top of that better. So if I can allow these enterprises to sort of use our tools more easily and get more value, using some of these general purpose systems, I think that's a very good niche to play. And that's the niche, but deep in domain. But of course, scale globally. So, increase our market opportunity in terms of not just looking at India, we're not looking Middle East, US, Europe. So we're trying to scale globally, but deeper into one vertical, because otherwise it's very difficult for me to go and compete with Microsoft, who's also pretty much today
Hmm.
working with another system integrator. Like anybody can sort of connect with an OpenAI API. If let's say I'm a horizontal conversational experience platform, I think it will be a bit far fetched for me to say that if you are just connecting an API through ChatGPT, then you are not take an ethical moral ground. And I have some foundational tech built by my company. So who are you to go and connect to an API and compete with me? That's eventually it's an open marketplace, and everybody has a right to compete and win.
Hmm.
So just because we build some great tech and have patents in it and whatever doesn't give us a right to win. We have to solve core business problems. So that's what we're focused on solving.
Got it. Got it. You spoke about the small language models. I think, as you
Right.
rightly said, everybody sort of talks about the most innovative model out there, which is like maybe ChatGPT
Right.
4.3 or something like that. But these tech companies are also producing small, very use case focused models like Llama, or Google has a Clio, or
Yeah.
DeepSeek, which is very good at cost saving and so on.
Yeah.
Notebook LM, and so on. What has been your experience around using these underrated technologies?
See, unfortunately, they are not general purpose models. They don't have, so user satisfaction and user content as a theme is where it doesn't help as the starter for an enterprise, right? Because today we are all used to chatting with ChatGPT because it's a
Mhm.
free version available for all. And, although ChatGPT may not like really make absolute sense all the time, if you go very deep, today it's very, very capable. But when you started off, at least, deep domain know-how, even today, deep domain know-how, if you go, the factual accuracy is questionable, right? If you actually bring in a subject matter expert, he would sort of have a debate with the model, right? Because there could be like a variation. And also using that for a very deep domain focus is like using a spaceship to cross a river, right?
Mhm.
So, let's say the earlier example I spoke about, I want to compare Swift with, let's say, another competitor model. Now, if I train a GP, if I use RAG into a GPT, spend, across everything, spend 2.5 rupees to service that query,
Mhm.
right? I don't think that's a viable business proposition, right? As a pilot, yeah, great, it's a great experience, but how many times are you going to ask that question differently, right?
Mhm.
Hey, I'm looking for this car. Compare this car with this car. There are maybe 10 ways you can ask it, and a very basic NLP model will be able to answer it, right? So we believe that. Large language models are good for generic large context use cases. There is no debate about it. But
Mhm.
for enterprises running a very focused business, solving a very focused business problem, can of course work with a combination of both. Right? I'm not saying kill LLMs, bring SLMs. That's not what our ideology is. But a large part of your context can be addressed by a small language model, reduces cost, gives you absolute control in terms of hallucinations and so on and so forth. Uh, Reduces cost. I spoke about latency, right? We don't sort of feel the latency today because
Right.
it's streaming, long responses, so on and so forth. But if you deploy it in an enterprise context, you are going to feel the impact of latency. A combination of SLMs, RAG, a reasoning agent, and an LLM model zoo is an ideal stack. The grid, according to us, is that. And
Mhm.
I think that will form the best architecture for enterprises at scale,
Mhm.
right? If you have a million customers coming and talking to you, then it is the most optimal and ethical choice because if you're a large enterprise, you're also looking at sustainability and so on and so forth. You
Right.
are burning a large volume of data center compute to answer a very simple question that can probably be run on a very small server even
Mhm.
without a GPU sometimes in an SLM.
Right.
So these considerations are very early. And as somebody who's building for the future, we believe that ecosystem absolutely, from general purpose models to very deep, use context specific, domain specific models will take over, or at least will have a large part to play in this ecosystem. And that's already showing up with the amount of models that are releasing and the kind of experiments that are happening. Generally, academic world sort of, the business and the enterprise, the commercial world sort of follows the academic
Hmm.
research area. That's how generally trends are.
Right.
And I think, you're seeing a lot of action in the academic side in SLMs, on the research side, and it's only a matter of time that gets mass commercial adoption.
Got it. And finally, before we close, I just have one last question for you. How would you advise the new age entrepreneurs to go about entrepreneurship? Because I think the definition of entrepreneurship has changed over the years. I think
Right.
probably 100 years back, it was about idea and innovation. So maybe a Henry Ford would come up with a brilliant idea of assembly lines, and that creates a big entrepreneur opportunity. Eventually, entrepreneurship became all about execution. I think everybody has great ideas, but whoever executes fast and better will be a good entrepreneur. But I think with
Right.
AI, with all the new technologies, I think AI is at the forefront of both creating ideas. AI can give you ideas and it can execute also with the agents coming in.
Right.
What do you see the process of entrepreneurship in the future? How will entrepreneurship happen? How would you define that concept of entrepreneurship?
I don't think like the basics have changed, right? If from my mistakes and what I've learned, probably I would say that spend that time. The idea itself, right, is just a seed, right? And it needs a lot of nurturing, like you said, execution, and all of that is when it will really sort of nurture. An idea itself means nothing unless you're already a very, very successful entrepreneur coming back to a new idea. Then the idea can come and go and seek. You can actually get backing for that idea. But I think that liberty is not available with a lot of entrepreneurs who are probably starting off for the first time. Like when we did. So I think spending a lot of time on validating that idea, either with prototypes, talking to your customers. So if I had to go back and do it, like, we were like sort of maybe starting to execute day one, right? Like starting to build, and then learn through the process. Maybe that works, but if I had to do it again, I would probably spend a lot more time even before I start building the product to talking to my customers, potential customers, and customers are going to use the product, right? Who's playing, etc. While all of this market research, most of the people do market research like secondary, but spending, let's say, taking a year to sort of do primary research, talking to ecosystem partners, during the same time, maybe talking to a bunch of investors also, right? Because at the end of the day, you need money to execute as well. To sort of formulate the idea well into a executable business plan,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think is what a lot of entrepreneurs don't seem to be doing today. If you look at a lot of these successful entrepreneurs who have done a big stint and are now coming back and doing, they would probably be in stealth for like a year, year and a half. If you see,
Mm.
what they're doing is actually just primary research, right? They're probably not even building; they're just going, building consensus that you know this idea has the opportunity to execute,
Right.
and the market opportunity is big enough for me to go and tap into this and solve this problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one area, and then when you start executing, then your journey is a very unique journey. And like I said, execute, like you said, I mean, execution is key. But focus on your journey, because as an entrepreneur, always there would be people who would go ahead, and I've said this in a couple of times, and there would be people who would fall behind,
Mm.
right? People who fall behind shouldn't serve as a demotivation for you, or people going ahead shouldn't make you inferior, because you have a very unique journey, and if you're true to what you're doing, at the right time, at the right point, things will start happening, right? So, I mean, we've had our own journey for 7, 8 years now. So, some people look at us and say, you've spent 7, 8 years and you only got here. And
Mm-hmm.
then some people would look at it and say, wow, you've gotten here in 7 years. So it's all about perspective. So, and if you are content in that you have put in the right effort and it's a long game, if you have that patience and persistence, then I think it'll work.
Understood. Well, thanks for joining us, Sriram. It was a very interesting conversation. I personally learned a lot of things, and I'm sure our listeners would also learn as well. And I think you are building a very agile business, which is future ready, and all the right approaches for building a tech business. Uh, Pleasure speaking with you, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me. I hope I've at least some points for listeners to take away and I've not made it boring. So thank
Not
you.
boring at all. Not boring for me at all.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Priyo. All
Thank
the
you.
best
Thank you,
for
Sriram.
your future podcast as well. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.